That all with Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a fellowship group, it's a recovery group, and we just want to make that clear. And thank you so much for coming out today to support us. And before I tell you a little bit about I Got Bridge, what we'd like to do is I just spoke recently at Peer Connections last Wednesday, and we want to bring the whole community in on this. And Peer Connections is phenomenal with the community. Matter of fact, I was talking to my sister Laurie a couple days ago, right after I spoke, and I said, "This is amazing. It's like we're feeding off of each other. The community's chipping in, and we're all working together." And Laurie said, "It's like an ecosystem." I said, "It is. That's what it is." And it's not an ecosystem. And then we're going to have a chuckle, you know. But I'd like to introduce Jackie. She's going to tell you just a little bit about Peer Connections and what they have to offer right here in town. Jackie? Jackie, yo.
Hi, thank you. My name is Jackie McDonough, and I'm the Executive Director at Connections Peer Support Center here in Portsmouth. And I'm very honored to be part of the ecosystem here this morning. Thank you, Freddie. I really love that. I think that's nature in its finest is us in its finest, and I think that when we're all working together, beautiful things can happen. So I'm actually brandy new at Connections Peer Support Center, and I've been there, I'm going into my third month right now, so I might cheat and look at the brochures just in case I have to remember. No, I'm just kidding. But Connections is a peer-run and peer-driven, so people living with mental health challenges are staffed and running the center for people living with mental health challenges also. It's obviously dedicated to an environment that facilitates hope-based recovery and inspires mental, emotional well-being. And we have three, I'm gonna put these, I like to talk with my hands too sometimes. We have three major programs, and one most notably is great. We have a 14-passenger van that drives through Portsmouth, picking up some of our folks to come and bring them into the center. And it has our warm line on it, and the warm line is available and open to anyone Monday through Sunday, so every day of the week from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. So it's an awesome opportunity for folks who are living alone, who are lonely. Loneliness is one of the biggest contributing factors to depression, to a lot of mental health challenges. So that's an awesome program that we have. Another is what's called a Step Up, Step Down program. It's just a couple of fancy words for what we call a wellness retreat center out in Northwood. It's a 3-bedroom facility that is all funded actually by the state, and again, run by and for people with mental health challenges. So there are no clinicians on staff, there are no prescribers on staff. It is all staffed by people living with mental health challenges. And then the third is our sort of, epicenter over here on Islington, 544 Islington Street. It resembles like a clubhouse kind of feel. We don't necessarily call it a drop-in center, but that's kind of the few words of what it is. Anyone is welcome to come. Anyone who has lived with a mental health challenge, is living with one, or fears that they're in danger of living with a mental health challenge. Anyone is welcome. So it's been really awesome, and I'm really excited to be part of the community, and having this opportunity is just, a blessing, and I'm happy to be here. And wow, the La Molita coffee and the monkey breads, they're really delicious, so thank you. Some brochures that I can leave maybe back at the raffle table. Is that okay to leave the brochures at the raffle table, or is that okay? Yeah. Okay, great.
Thank you so much. And before I thank Shelley for the monkey bread, of course I forgot, we're going to start this meeting with the moment says there's a card here, and I got Bridge card with the Help Others prayer on the back. We're going to start the meeting with a moment of silence, and we'll all say the Help Others prayer together.
Okay, let's do the prayer. Open my eyes to see the needs of the people around me. I will do my best to serve others as you did. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Thank you all so much for coming. And speaking of monkey bread, thank you so much for Shelly and her daughter Maya and Jenny. Everyone appreciates it. Thank you for Love You Leader Coffee, our newest sponsor. Also, a huge shout out to First United Methodist Church for letting us provide here. Thank you. So I got Bridge makes absolutely zero from this meeting. It's always for free, but we do pass around a basket. Emma's going to be walking around with the basket. Any donations at all, half will go to First United Methodist Church, and the other half goes to the Sunrise Squad, which is underprivileged children over at Little Harbor Elementary School. They colored in these posters. They do things for the community. They do different excursions, and they're a big part of I Got Bridge. And as far as I Got Bridge, how it really came to fruition. So about 4 years ago, I lost my sight within a matter of 2 to 3 months. And then through that course of action, what ended up happening, I was absolute end-stage alcoholism. I had hepatitis, cirrhosis, gout, neuropathy. I was just at death's doorstep. And they had a clinical trial in order to save my life, totally out of the blue, no such thing as coincidences. So I went to Philadelphia about 15 times. When it failed on my eyesight, I ended up getting hooked on my program of recovery, so it in turn saved my life going blind. I went to blind school for about 16 weeks, and after I got out, I just continued to walk. I was walking about 20 miles a day. I lost 55 pounds, and things were just going great. And then, as far as in regards to helping others, I was just helping others in order to take myself out of my own self-pity. And then I had said to my friend on the bridge, I kept getting stuck. I couldn't get to Kittery and back and forth. The bridge kept going up. So I said, what do you think about this idea for a nonprofit? Not only is it a physical barrier, but it's a metaphor for life, how to get to the other side. And she said, I love it. She said, how are we going to do it? I said, I have no idea. And that's how it was born. And then we just started shoveling, and one thing led to the other. It snowballed from there, no pun intended, and it just has caught fire. And it's just been remarkable. We just got our 101st volunteer yesterday, which is just amazing. And if anybody would like to volunteer, you go to igotbridge.com. And there's a little volunteer tab there. And a week from Sunday, 9/11, if you want to help others, we've got to go to the Bridge-a-thon. We'd love for you to come. It's on Fort Tree Island. Big band, fantastic food. The walk is right over the bridge and back. There's bagpipes playing on the bridge. Kids of all ages are totally for free. There's complimentary face painting throughout the day. It's going to be fantastic. We hope everyone can come and can sign right up for the walk-a-thon on igotbridge.com. And we've just been doing a tremendous amount. The first walk-a-thon, we actually raised enough money to purchase that 15-passenger van you see outside. And we actually shuttle the elderly and people in need to the food pantry every single week. We pick them all up at the public housing, and then we go over to Walmart to get them items they may have missed. We partnered up with Portsmouth Housing Authority this summer, and we, after the food pantry, we went over to Gosling Meadows and then took the children over to the community pool. So that's just been, the whole experience has just been amazing. And the best part is the volunteers are getting way more out of it than the people we're helping. And what we've also done, what's near and dear to us also, is Cheryl, who's with us here today. She referred us to a lady by the name of Diane. And so for the past 5 to 6 months, we've been taking this lady on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays to dialysis. So when people are like, oh, do you got something for me to do? They think we go, oh yeah, take someone to Hannaford. No. Could you pick someone up from Wells, take them over to Biddeford, hang around for 5 hours, then take them back, then you can come back to Rye. And it's been amazing. We've just been helping her out without missing a beat. And matter of fact, gentleman by the name of Don Mallett. He's on our board, and he jumped right to it. Could you imagine? I would never say wasting, spending your whole day, and you incorporate some things into the day, and in the end, we get way more out of it than the person we're helping. She's counseling people in the car, and then after Dawn's doing it, can you imagine getting a text? Thank you so much for the service work. I'm like, you gotta be kidding. This guy's incredible. And right here, we've implemented a new thing. It's called the Joy Coin. We're gonna have a volunteer of the month, and this goes to Don Mallett. Come on up, Don. Thank you so much, Don. Thank you. Awesome. Thanks, Don. Also, another quick shout out to Martingale Wharf. Chris and I went out to dinner last night, and the manager, Jamie, from Martingale Wharf, to our surprise, said dinner is on us. Thank you so much for everything I Got Bridge does for the community, and she's part of the ecosystem. Also, thanks to Hotel Portsmouth for also putting our speaker Chris up for free. It's unbelievable. Thank you so much. And a big part of what we do is we wrote to Rick Warren, who's the author of Purpose Driven Life, the pastor, and we loved it. It took us, a lot of us, to the next level. It's a daily devotional. It's just a remarkable book. So we wrote to Pastor Rick Warren, telling him what we're doing with the Time4Joy Fellowship Group. And they were so excited, they sent us 22 brand new copies of the Purpose Driven Life. And so that's going to be some of the free raffles that we have today. And we put date 14 under here, so that's for you to take home under all those pamphlets right there. And besides the free raffle, like I said, this just runs on donation. This is only if you wish to purchase raffle tickets before you leave. $25,000 in prizes, which we've collected from all around the community. Everyone has been pitching in, and we've collected over 25,000 in prizes. So if you want to buy any raffle tickets, no pressure by any means. We really would love for you to be in the Bridge-a-thon. So thank you. And Joy's not with us today. She's over in Europe, and she's got some work to do over there. But thanks to our board, all the other board members, Jenny, Dawn, and Shelley. And without further ado, I mean, when I heard Chris, it was just, I had to hear him speak. I fired his tape all over the place to people that I could. And I'm not sure I didn't see my friend John. It's amazing. 85-year-old, one of my best friends. Who would have thought? An 85-year-old guy a couple of months ago, after I heard Chris's tape was sent to me, I ran to Hannaford. I called John. I said, what are you doing tonight? It's a Friday night. So I ran to Hannaford. I got a frozen apple pie. We got, of course, ice cream, whipped cream. I bring it over to my friend John's house. And then we're trying to figure it out. I can't see. And then John can't see, you know. We're FaceTiming my sister Laurie. All of a sudden we're getting the oven. John and I are burning each other, you know. And then, of course, I was telling him more. I had like 19 scoops. And then we sat in his living room, and then we listened to Chris's tape, you know. What a great Friday night it was. And I didn't see John, but God bless him. Hopefully he's here somewhere. But we couldn't be happier. For Chris came all the way up from Brockton, and I'd love to introduce to him. Thanks, Chris.
Hi everyone, my name is Chris P. I am an alcoholic, an addict, and amongst other things, I'm spiritually sick. My sobriety date's May 4, 2002. I haven't had a drink, a drug, or any mind-altering substance since that date. And, I gotta thank God for that. You know, when I do anything like this, my hands start getting clammy, I shake a little bit, and I used to pay a lot of money to feel like this. And, you know, my day starts out with prayer every day now. It's the most vigilant thing in my life. I got to tap into God and higher power, whatever you wish to call it or use. I call it God because it's easy to spell and you people have an understanding on what I'm talking about. And, you know, when I get up and I drove around, I'm foreign to this area. It's a beautiful area. I've never been to Portsmouth, and I'm walking around with the mayor last night, Freddie, and it's Freddie, you know, and it's so awesome to see what's going on with this. I've got Bridge down. I do a lot of service work down in my area. Brockton's a huge city, filled with homeless and mental illness, and you name it, it's there too. And And that's what I do. That's what I was taught from my sponsor. And my day started out with prayer, and then Freddie called and said, "Can you come get the coffee?" And then wanted to go pick up an elderly woman at his place that needed a ride back to her old place. And so my day starts out with, and again, I'm foreign to this area, so I got my Siri going, map quest around, and I got an elderly lady running shotgun in the back, and I got a blind guy in the front seat telling me how to get around Portsmouth. So how am I missing out, right? So, but we got here, and we got there, and we got her there to get her stuff, and so God's good, God's really good. And like I said, I grew up in Brockton. I married my high school sweetheart. She was 15, I was 17 when we met. She should have had a little signpost there. We went to the high school prom together. I went to the cemetery across the street with my tux and got drunk and came back over, and I get in a fight before I can even get into the prom. And they wouldn't let me in. And I couldn't understand that. I got mud all over me, and she gets in and she gets crowned prom princess. So right there, I should have told her, get the hell away from that kid, right? And we went on, and it wasn't a progression of this disease. I held the madness at bay for a long time. Me and my wife, we followed the hippie cult. I followed the Grateful Dead all over the country. I had hair down to here. I wore leather moccasins up to my knees and wore tie-dye shirts and drove around in Colorado and California and sold all the nice, hallucinogenic stuff. And I tell you, I had a lot of spiritual experiences eating that stuff. And they talk about our co-founder, Bill Wilson, tried it and tried to find God. And anyway, we went on and started a family. In 1987, we had our first daughter. 1990, we had our second daughter. 1993, we had our third daughter. 1996, we had our fourth daughter. It seemed like every 3 years we had another daughter. I got enough daughters now to start a softball team eventually. And she was my biggest co-defendant, right? We drank together, we did all the dry goods together, we managed to, we weren't bad parents, we were alcoholics. Right? They never went without. And I had a beautiful, 5-bedroom house, and I put the built-in pool in, and I always worked. Since I was 14, I've had a job. And I worked in construction, and things, it started getting bad. It progressed into, I remember, I look back, my parents, I didn't drink in kindergarten, but I sure could have used one, right? I've been spiritually sick. See, I got hit with this bullet at birth. This isn't something you grow into, right? I've heard people in AA say, I've been an alcoholic from the first drink. That's like getting pregnant without having sex, right? And I got hit with this at birth. I was alcoholic. I was spiritually sick since I was a kid. I was restless, irritable, and discontent. I was disconnected. The book talks about a spiritual malady. A malady is a disconnection, a spiritual sickness. And I was doing things when I was a kid that I shouldn't have been doing as a 10 or 11 or 12-year-old kid. I was burning the fields. I lived in a dead-end street and would go light the fields on fire. And the fire department would go down and try to help stamp it out. And my next door neighbors would leave for vacation, and I'd go over and break in their house. And, back then the TVs were huge, like big TVs, and I'd throw it over my shoulder and running with a 90-pound TV through the backyard, and they'd pull in early from vacation and say, "Isn't that Chris? Isn't that our TV?" So I did a lot of crazy stuff, and I played a lot of sports. I boxed out of Capiello's gym. I had 3 older brothers, and I was the runt of the litter, right? And And they always put their beatings on me. My father actually was brought up in a bad kid's home and was taken from Goody Petronelli. I don't know if you know him. He owned a big boxing gym in Brockton, and took my father in, and my father started doing towels and waters, and he ended up having to be a sparring partner. He ended up sparring for Rocky Marciano. I'm sure you know who Rocky Marciano is. And he was the sparring partner for Rocky Marciano, and he wanted all of us to be boxers, fighters, and none of my brothers would have anything to do with it. So of course I started fighting, and I did very well, and was going to Junior Olympics and all that stuff, and you know, and to fast forward it, when I became drinking age and all that stuff, I started using it as a weapon. You know, I'd go to these bars and you know, my friend, oh, Chris, he's looking at you, and you'd go after the biggest guy in there. I'll tell you what, I'm like 0-50 in bar fights. Like, I get real sloppy, and again, things would progress to dry goods, and you know, and I'm sure a lot of these guys, maybe girls say, call your spouse or whatever, your husband, and say, I'm going to be home after a couple. I'm going to the bar, my friend Eddie, I'll be home after a couple. And that's a lie, right? How come we always say a couple? I've never, you know, and my friend Eddie would say, call his girl and say the same thing, and he'd go home, right? Because they'd have a couple and leave. I should say, I'm going to have 12 beers, 6 shots, get an 8-ball of coke, get in my car, get pulled over, now I need bail. That's what I should say. That's the truth, because see, I have this allergy in me. And whether you're alcoholic, addict, suffer from depression, mental illness, whatever it is, welcome. Welcome. This is the key. Helping others. I learned that after coming in AA. The key is to help God's kids. Right? Most importantly, God's going to take care of me when I'm helping his kids. It's as simple as that. It's not rocket science, and I didn't know any of that. Because I'm such a selfish, self-centered little bastard. I'm not thinking about you. I'm not thinking about my mother that's sick and needs my help. I'm not thinking about my daughters that need me. Because I'm so caught up in myself and my addiction and doing what I got to do, I'm not thinking about that. Right? And as time passed, the consequences got worse. As this progresses, the consequences get worse. Now I start going to prison. Right? Now I'm this tough guy in Brockton. I want to fight everyone. I'm incarcerated. Now I got the jail mentality. I'm coming out, I can't stop drinking, I can't stop because I got no power over this thing, and I'm going, now child services is coming into my life. Here they come, right? I'm a good alcoholic, I know how to get by, I'm going to run the detox, right? And I do that all the time, and like I said, my wife was my biggest co-defendant. I go get 10 days, and I come home, and I love the Bruins, and I'm watching the Bruins game, and my wife's still active, and I got to go buy her the stuff. The guy comes to the door, and I know she's in the other room doing it, so I'm going out of my mind. Because see, I got this mental illness, this mental obsession, coupled by a physical allergy that doesn't allow me to stop. When I put it in me, it turns the switch on. I can't stop. So it's step one. I'm always in a powerless state, whether I'm starting or stopping. I'm always in a powerless state, right? And so I end up, child services comes, I end up running back to detox, and I call home when I get there. My oldest daughter, Crystal, answers the phone. They're young at this time, and she's crying and screaming, and I hear my daughters in the background screaming. This time they came and took my wife, Brockton Police and Child Services, and they gave her urine and she's dirty. And this time they're taking her. Right? And what do, guys? I'm this tough guy from Brockton, right? I'm the man. And what do? I go up in the room and I cry like a baby. Because on the inside, I'm a coward. Right? I'm supposed to be taking care of these beautiful girls that God gave me. And I remember my sponsor told me, Chris, they're not your girls, they're God's kids. He just lent them to you. Take care of them. Right? So I needed people to throw the truth in my face, or I wasn't going to get this thing. And what do? I leave there, AMA, like always. I'm going to go save my kids. And before I get halfway back to Brockton from Foxborough, I'm calling the man. Because I still got this thing in my head that tells me, do more. That's your solution. God's the solution. I found that out today. But I'm not a problem drinker or a problem user. I'm a solution drinker. Right? Life's the problem. I need a solution, right? I need ease and comfort. And sort of fast forwarded, I go home and my daughters are in the system now, and I end up, they eventually ended up with my in-laws. First they took two and sent them to one home, and two and sent them to the other. One home, a lot of people are in for it for the money, and they're chopping my daughter's hair off, and I'm like, I got no control now. Now I'm powerless over life. I always was, but now I'm really powerless. I got no say over my children, and we keep going on, like it says in the book, to the bitter end. Me and my wife were in that house, and I'm looking up at these pictures. I had these nice pictures painted of my daughters on canvas, and I'm looking up, and I used to coach my daughter Crystal's softball team. I got a van and put benches in it, and I was the man, and I'm still drinking and drugging and, running back to the van to do my thing. And so be careful who's coaching your kid's softball team. Make sure it isn't Chris P. And I'm looking at these pictures and I'm like, what happened? What happened? And I went to CCD and knew the God thing and the Jesus thing, and I'm from a big Italian family. My grandmother, she's so Italian, she's got the mustache and beard and stuff. I tell you, she used to hammer me with the Jesus thing, and you're gonna get punished, you're bad, and that's, it talks about in our literature, that's the God, the God of my understanding I was brought up with. Why is he gonna have anything to do with me? I'm a piece of shit, he ain't helping me. And when you come into these fellowships, they want you to find a God or a higher power and all that stuff, and so it was hard for me, and I end up locked again, and this time we're on, the hardcore stuff and methadone clinics, and thank God I never stuck a needle in my arm. That makes me any better, but and my wife's pregnant again. Right? And I get incarcerated. Now I'm looking at 2 on and 2 up. I'm looking at 4 years. Not because I did armed bank robberies or, killed anybody or anything. I was an alcoholic and that. That's what got me in trouble. I got myself in trouble. And I end up going back, and I remember being in there the first week, and the CO come up and says, we got news for you. Your wife had a baby boy. I wanted a son. Right? And that's that ego. I wanted to carry my father's name. Right? And they ended up releasing me on a personal. I don't know why, but maybe because of that. But I went up and seen my son, and he was addicted to crack cocaine and methadone, and weighed about 3 pounds, and he was gonna die. Right? And when I was incarcerated, you could have put a lie detector on my finger, and I would have said, I'll never touch that stuff again. I swear up and down, I will never touch that stuff again. And I went and seen my son, and I leave the hospital, and what do? Because see, I suffer from this mental illness, this obsession, and I don't blame it on that. And I know it's labeled as a disease and from these doctors and all that stuff. And I have no solution to solve my problem, right? And even though, see, it talks about in our literature how there is no power on earth that's going to solve this problem I have. None. I'm beyond human aid, it's saying. So meaning, when the judge says, Chris, you got to go to jail for 4 years, I'm going to pay that price. When Child Services says, we're going to take your children, Chris, I'm going to pay that price. Right? Because I have no power over this thing. And I got released in the fast forward, I'm back in that house, and I'm with my wife, and my son ended up living. They took him to a medical home. They put him up for pre-adoption, and I ended up taking that house. I sold one of my brothers got 30 years in recovery. I ended up selling the house to him, keeping it in the family. My mother had left it for me, and I fixed it all up. And I sold it to my brother, and I had the $5,000 in my pocket, and me and my wife ended up to this. It's called the Young Court Hotel. It's in Brockton, right next to the courthouse. It's not the Marriott, by no means. It's not the Regency. It's probably the worst motel you can find in Brockton. I don't know if anyone's ever been there, but it's bad. And of course, I didn't show up when they released me probation. So now I'm running. Probation's looking at me, and me and my wife took that money, and we did with it. And I'm up there. I'm all tweaking out and a mess. And it's midnight, and I think my probation officer's on the sidewalk calling my name. We know you're up there. She's not out there. I'm just paranoid. The tree cops and. It got bad, and the money ran out, and I looked at my wife and I said, Sheila, I'm going to get well. I'm going to detox, and I'm getting the girls back, and I meant it. I said, I don't care what you do. We've been together at this point now. We've been together almost 17 years at that point, and I said, I'm leaving. And I called my friend, and I went to detox. I always went to a place called NorCap, and it was my favorite detox. And I don't know, because they had the little sandwiches and the ice creams and stuff. And staff would get to know you. The same nurses worked there, and they'd bring me out for an extra cigarette. And they knew I had daughters, and poor Chris, and that's not good, guys and girls. That's not good when staff gets to know you. And I went there, and I wanted to go to further treatment. I was in therapy, like I said. I'm a black belt in good therapy. My parents had me in therapy for years, and then I go to IOP, intensive outpatient programs, and Mona O'Rourke was my counselor. I don't know if anyone's been to therapy in here, maybe. When they stick you in a room and they put the noise reduction thing, and play the music, and she did that with me one time, and she said, Chris, I want you to stay here for a minute, and I'll be back. And I'll put the music on, and picture yourself somewhere on a mountain or something. They said, all right, I'll play the game, And she came back in, and she said, well, how'd you do? I said, I did all right. She said, where were you? I said, I was on a mountain out in California. It was beautiful. She goes, what'd you see? I said, the most beautiful marijuana plants you're ever going to see. So the book tells, the literature says, too, that I'm incapable of being honest with these therapists, because I don't want them to see the real truth. I don't want them to see the fear I'm in, right? Ego says I don't want to ask for help. I got this. I never had this, right? And I end up You know, I end up there saying, all right, you're going to further treatment. I was waiting to call my probation officer. They said, you're going to Long Island, and then we'll get you into a halfway house. I said, I'm not going to New York. See, I didn't know anything about this island they got in Boston and Quincy. It's called Long Island. It's like, 30 minutes from my house. And every day at 4 o'clock, they ship 400 homeless people out there, and it's dedicated. The guy who owned it on Long Island and George's Island and stuff, when he died, he left it in his will only to be used for homeless and drug and alcohol addiction or mental illness. And there's like 5 buildings out there and hospital staff and everything. And that's where I ended up, in a holding, and to go on to a halfway house. And I never been to Alcoholics Anonymous or any of that stuff. And they used to come in, groups used to come in down in that area. They're big, and they'd come in and do commitments and speak, and they'd bring 5, 10 guys in. And I heard a guy speak, and at this point, I'm homeless. I got no children. I probably owe the IRS about $100,000 a month, 20 credit cards. I'm financially ruined, and I had no hope, right? And they heard him speak, and I pulled this guy aside, and he attracted me, and I said, hey, this is what's happening. I told him my tale of woe, that I don't have, all this is happening in my life, and he looked at me, and he said, pray. And I'm like, that's all you got? I'm screwed, right? And I did it, and that's the most vigilant thing I've done in my life in the last 20 or so years since I've been sober. I started hitting my knees. I'm in a dorm with 5 guys from South Boston who, they're all natural-born killers from Southie. I don't know if you heard of Southie, we're white about, and they didn't like Brockton, right? Because Brockton's the city of champions, it's called, And I'm praying, and I'm in the dorm with these guys. They're waiting to go to halfway houses, and I'm hitting my knees, and I'm praying, and one of them was an armored bank robbery guy, and all the young kids had him on a pedestal, tough guy, and I'm kneeling down and praying, and he's tapping on my shoulder, saying, who are you talking to? You think he's going to help you? You think he'll help us? And they were all joking around and goofing on me and stuff. But I'll tell you, my hands turned into bowling balls. I wanted to take this guy out so bad. And I wanted my children back, right? So I just waited out, and I let them play the tough guy, and I cowered it up. I had to humble myself. This takes a lot of humility, right? And I ended up, I'm like, the 30 days came, I'm on my way to my halfway house, right? When I got there, I got nothing. I had the same slippers on from detox. I borrowed sneakers off a homeless guy. Right? How am I doing? Got a lot going on in your life, Chris, right? And I ended up going to this halfway house, and I'm running out with my little Irish luggage, my green bag, and I get in the van, and I'm sitting in the back waiting to go. Next thing you know, I see all 5 guys from my room running out. They're all going to the same halfway house as me, right? I get there, and the same thing. I'm in the same room with the same guys. And not that I'm better, but I stuck to my program. I got there. A group came in from Revere. They spoke, and this little Italian guy. The attraction was he looked like my father, a little short Italian guy, looked like a fire hydrant, right? And I followed him out and said, hey, can you be my sponsor? He says, come here. And he brings me over to his car and hands me a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and said, we're going to go through this book. Read this book. Your life's in that book. That book's going to save your life. And he gave me a couple prayer books, and I was on my journey. I entrenched myself in Alcoholics Anonymous and a couple other fellowships, and I, did the drill, joined a group, did this, passed out designer chicks and made coffee and did everything I could. And 6 months, I graduated that halfway house. While I was in there, I called probation. She said, Chris, you get a dirty urine or you get kicked out, you're going to jail. So I had a few things pushing me, and I wanted my children back. I'm going back and forth from the halfway house to Brockton. I get to visit my son now, you know. And my wife, actually, the same day I went to detox, my wife went. So we had the same sobriety day. She went to a women's program on the other side down in New Bedford, and I'm out in East Boston, so I'm, 75 miles away from her, and that's the best thing we ever could have done. Right? And she stayed sober too. She did a program and got a sponsor and all that, so it's like the Cinderella story in AA, I'm telling her. And we ended up, and I'm doing everything, and I'm seeing my son, and to fast forward, my sponsor said, why don't you stay longer? I graduated after 6 months, and I went to the sober house, and if you're in a program now, what do you got to lose? Right now, your life's a mess, you're homeless, and if you're in a house right now, stay there. And I went to this sober house, I was out there 15 months. And I'm running around, I'm going to Revere Beach, I'm going to the sober club, I'm going to AA and doing all this, and my wife's in a program down there, and I gotta be honest, I didn't know if we were gonna end up together, because we were so sick together for so long, and I'm married, and thank God for my sponsor, I'm outside talking to the girls, and how you doing, and he'd tell me, Chris, get your ass back into the meeting. Don't shit in your own backyard. You're a married man. He said, you're still a selfish, self-centered little bastard. You might be sober, but go get your kids back. I'm like, shit. I wanted to knock him out a couple times, and I did. I went back to Brockton and started doing the drill, joined AA out there in Bridgewater, and I'm out there, and I'm doing the drill. I'm going to court to get my son back. I got a court-appointed lawyer. These people that wanted him are rich, multi-rich. And I'm going to a meeting at, I'm 3 years sober, and I'm still going to trial. And my lawyer called and said, you lost the trial. And they adopted my son permanently. He was 2 years old. And they took him. I went to the thing, they call it a termination visit. That's what child services call it. So my rights are terminated. I got to see him one last time for an hour. And I named him Anthony, and I bought him a St. Anthony's necklace. And I spent an hour with him, and I went in the room with the adoptive father, and I said, hey, can you give him this? And tell him I was sober. And he hugs on to me, and he said, Chris, I was adopted when I was 6 months old. I never found my family. He said, I'm not going to let that happen to you. So right there, I walked out, and I felt this God thing they're talking about in AA. I felt this peace. Even though they just took my son, when this guy said that, I'm like, wow, man, this God thing's working in my life. And a week later, the same judge that took my son permanently gave me my 4 daughters back. My wife had to do a few more things. And now I'm full of rage and resentment. I'm like, how can he take my only son and give my 4 daughters back immediately? And so I'm trying to raise these 4 girls. My wife still had to do a few more things for child services. She was with her mother. She couldn't come home yet, and I got these 4 girls. And I always gave my daughters, I had money. I could give them what they wanted as far as material and stuff, but my heart wasn't there, right? I wasn't paying attention. And I remember they were going to school, and one of my daughters said, Dad, can you do a French braid? I'm like, oh, shit. I'm screwed. I'm like, And I've seen them before. I know what a French braid is. And I tried doing it, and I did her hair all up, and the poor kid, by the time I got done, it looked like she had dreadlocks. Like, here you go to school. I had to call a woman in AA and ask for help. I learned to ask for help, you know. And, so my journey was on, and you know, there's not enough words in my mind and in my heart that I can amend what I put my daughters through. It's through my actions, right? And I ended up meeting a guy a few months later, and his name's Doug. He spoke here a month ago, I think, and asked him. I heard about talking about God and sponsors and all that stuff, and helping others, and like, I'm 3 years sober. If you come up to me and said, "Hey, Chris, can you sponsor me?" I would have said, "You don't want what I have." Because I'm a mess in Alcoholics Anonymous, spiritually sick. I'm just sober. And the book tells me that's not enough for a guy like me. If you don't put God in a guy like me, I'm not going to make it. And this guy took his time in one-on-one, the way they did it when AA started. And he walked me through these steps, and exactly what happened was I had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. And he said, "It's your turn. Go help God's kids." And man, I was on fire. For the last 17 years, that's what I've done. Hundreds of guys, and it's not about notches on my belt or trophy pieces. They're God's kids. Time is my currency. Not my SUV, not my boat, not my flat screen TV. It's my time. Helping these guys. It's time. Where you find me is down the local homeless shelters and the guy on the park bench. I need that guy. I need that guy. And you know, and things we were going along good, and I ended, I always talk about this at the end. If I wasn't going to drink or go back to my ways, my wife Sheila, my best friend, we were sober together. We put the girls through colleges and bought another house, and she got sick 11 years ago. She got cancer, and it happened fast. And she was out at the Brigham Women's Hospital, and I'm working. I ended up going on my own and starting my own company after working for a millionaire. And I'm like, why is he making all the money? I'm going to do this. And fear will keep me there. Fear will keep me settling for less. Fear of having a good relationship. Fear of owning my own company. Fear of financial insecurity, all that stuff. And when you got God over here and fear over here, God's going to win. They're on opposite sides of the street. So when I'm full of God, I got no room for fear. And when I'm full of fear, I got no room for God. I'll stick with God, please. And then I'm driving back and forth to work. Two of my daughters, they live in different cities, and I'm picking them up. Them two, they drive. I'm driving out to the hospital to see my wife at Brigham Women's in Boston, breast cancer hospital, and I go in, and my wife was 43, and she was beautiful. And I walk in, and I'm like, I told the doctor, I said, "That's not my wife." In a week, she looked 90, right? And I'm sitting there and see through my actions, my daughters are watching this. There's my amends to my daughters, right? And I'm watching, and I'm bringing her down, and she, she's still wanting to smoke, and she's in a recliner, and when she was cold, I covered her, and when she was hot, I uncovered her, and when she wanted to have a cigarette, I'd undo all the machines and pick her up and put her in a wheelchair, and I'd bring her down, and she'd have 3 cigarettes, right? And then I'd bring her back up, and get her all put back in her chair with the machine hooked up, and she'd look at me and say, I want to go have a cigarette. And my daughter would be like, Mom, we just came up, and like, she couldn't even hold her head up, you know, and I'd bring her down and she'd have another cigarette, and this last time I'm bringing her up, she was on the 13th floor, and when you're on the 13th floor of Brigham Women's, you're gonna die, pretty much. And I brought her up, and we're on the 10th floor, and I think it was the 10th floor, and she said, go to the 10th floor, and she's pointing at me, and when my wife pointed at me, she meant business, right? And she goes to these doors, and she says, you're gonna go in there and steal too. So here I am, a man of God, and my wife wants me to steal, right? And my two daughters are with me, two of them, and it says, unauthorized personnel only on these doors. I'm like, shit. And my daughters start chanting, Dad, Dad, Dad. So they're cheering me on, right? So I'm like, screw this, I'm gonna do it. She's gonna die, you know, and so here comes the alcoholic and the addict, and here I am scoping it out, looking for the nurses, you know. I can do this, you know. And I blast through these doors, and all the alarms and bells and whistles are going off, and I see the nurse down the hall pointing at me. I'm like, oh shit. She said, there's a steel thing in there, open it and steal to. And I open these things, they look like microwaves, and I open them up, and it's a blanket warmer. So I grabbed 2 warm blankets and ran out of a real big thief that I am. and I put them on my wife, and she's just looking at me, and I see her tearing her eye, and all she wanted was a picture of her son, or see her son before she passed, and I put these blankets on her, and she's got this tear in her eye, and she can't even hold her head up. My daughters are looking at me, and I'm supposed to be this tough guy, and I don't want to cry in front of my daughters. And you know, guys, when your Adam's apple's up here and you want to cry, Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to cry. And what's happening is I'm looking at her, and what's happening is the God in her is hitting the God in me. That's AA 12 steps, God, reliance, and helping others. The root of my troubles is I'm selfish and self-centered. And I knew at this point in my life that that's been removed. Not only the drugs and my selfish and self-centered has been removed. I'm not thinking about me anymore. I'm thinking about my daughters, my wife, and you guys. Right? That's where any 12-step program or anything you're in here for will bring you to. God, reliance, helping others. That's the key. And that son I'll end it here. My son Anthony that was adopted. They said they were going to tell him about me and stuff, but last year he turned 18. He's 19 now, and he found one of my daughters on Facebook. Right? My daughter called me and told me and showed me a picture. I didn't know what it looked like. Right? The last time I seen him, he was 2 years old. And she said, he's coming to my house, Dad, Thursday. Can you be here? I'm like, yeah, I'll be there. You know? And geez, I walk in and there's my son. And see, that's what faith and hope does. I never picked up a drink or a drug or even thought about it and kind of let it go and prayed for him. And we've been sending him cards and birthday cards and letters my daughter's been sending him, and they finally gave it to him when he was almost 18, and he had a stack of them, and I walked in and he just said, "Hi, Dad." This is like, whew. Really God, like, you know, that's the good Jack Daniels, right? There ain't no drug or drink ever put that spirit on me that I had on the inside. Fire. Fire. And now he's got his relationship with his sisters. Right? And I have a relationship with him now. I got a relationship with the adopted father. And, he called me and he got hit with the bullet too. I don't know if really he's an alcoholic addict. He was smoking a vape pen and his parents are rich, so they sent him to a boot camp. I don't know. Don't try to push something on him that he isn't, and grounded him, and then he got in a little trouble, and like his dad, and I would have had him come up here with me today, but he's got an ankle bracelet on, so. Poor kid. But anyway, if you're wondering what this is all about and getting bridged, I've been bridged. I got God in my life. If you don't have a God right now, I invite you to use mine. He's huge. He's big enough for everybody in this room. God don't put limits. He don't use us as chess pieces. I don't care if you got no money, lots of money, where you come from. God will use you as a channel to help his other kids. And this is huge, what you guys are doing up here. And I thank you, Freddie, and this group, and all you folks for having me up here. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Chris. That was great. Thank you so much. And as you just mentioned, I got bridged. So what I got bridged means literally is you got dealt a bad hand. What are you going to do about it? And I was on Plum Island last week, and right before I was speaking at the Lloyd from the Link House asked me to speak that evening. And during the day, a gentleman said, "Weren't you in Portsmouth walking yesterday?" I said, "Yeah, we hit it off, me and this guy on Plum Island. We're going back and forth." He says, "I love it. Here's $40, right? What's I got bridged mean?" I said, "Well, it literally means you got dealt a bad hand. What are you going to do about it?" He said, "Well, hold out your hand." And then I feel this. He said, "What's that?" He said, "That's a nub. I got no hand." I said, "What?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "When I was 15, I built a pipe on and blew my hand off." And how crazy was that? And then he said, I came out of surgery, the doctor said, "You know what happened?" He said, "Yeah, I blew my hand off." He said, doctor said, "What are you going to do?" He said, "I'm just going to use my other hand." He dealt with that pretty good, And so I spoke, and Don, thanks for picking the gentleman up at the Link House. So I spoke that night at the Link House, and I love these guys. And at the hot dog meeting, the gentlemen from Link House were there. And we've been trying to get in the Link House for like 9 months. I keep calling, getting in there. We'll take them bowling, we'll do this, we'll do that. And I was kind of getting frustrated with it, though. I actually was praying on it, not to have a resentment. I'm like, what's the deal? But the more I looked into it, they have to kind of go all together. So it was more difficult than I was anticipating. But finally, we get in there. Now, Flatbread came on board as a sponsor. They're delivering pizza, and I was so excited. And they came last month. And then when I spoke at the meeting, gentleman Jesse came up to me, he'd be my sponsor. Started calling, it's nothing personal. So I was excited. Yeah, I'll be a sponsor. I'll excited and hear from him. That happens a lot, by the way. And not just to me. But anyways, he called about 5 days later, and it's Jesse. I said, "Oh, yeah, how you doing?" And I love the rigorous honesty. He said, "I got to be honest, so I didn't call." I said, "What happened?" He said, "I was scared. I'm nervous." I said, "I love it, right away." I said, "If you can't beat fear, do it scared." And I love that. My sister put that quote on, and I stick with it. And anyways, thank you so much for coming here. As far as Time for Joy Fellowship Group, I failed to mention, obviously, how we came up with Time for Joy, I might as well tell you, because it's Time for Joy Fellowship Group. There's a woman by the name of Joy that I bumped into last year in Market Square, and she was crossing her bridge. She was going through a lot at the time, and she wanted to volunteer. I said, "Perfect, we got a nonprofit." And she's been a driving force behind I Got Bridged, and I had said to Joy, "What do you do when you cross your bridge?" I said, "What do you do when you get unstuck?" And she said, "I guess it's my time for joy." And I said, "That's it. It's everyone's time for joy. It's the whole world's time for joy." So that's how Time for Joy was born. We're just having fun with it, I love the acronym for joy. You know, Jesus, others, you. If I don't put God first, I'm in some serious trouble. And I'll end with this as far as the acronyms. I love when I hope. Hang on, pain ends. So just, you know, I'd like to finish with that. And thank you all so much for coming. And please sign up for the Bridgeathon. It's on 9/11. They couldn't land on a better day to help others. There's no coincidence there. You know, it's on Fortree Island. We got bagpipes going, and would love to have you, please. And everyone, thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Chris.